A few months ago, Craig Bruce Smith and I asked two very important questions. One, is George Washington the first American action hero? And two, when are we going to get another George Washington biopic? Well, friends, the fates have delivered, and Craig and I are here to break it down. It's time for an emergency podcast. I'm joined today by Dr. Craig Bruce Smith. He is professor of history at the Joint Advanced Warfighting School in Virginia. And I, of course, am not any of those things here in Colorado. And I darn well guarantee you that our opinions represent only ourselves and no one else. So sit back and relax because we're talking about George Washington next on Reckoning with Jason Herbert. My name is Jason Herbert. I'm a Southerner who lives in the West. I'm a historian, an outdoorsman, and a movie buff. I like finding new answers to old questions, and this is a reckoning. Happy Halloween, my friend. How are you?
I'm all right. So it is indeed Halloween, which is why I wasn't allowed to shave.
I've never seen you with a beard.
No, it's bizarre. So what happens is my daughter is right now, everything is How to Train Your Dragon. So she's going as Astrid for Halloween, which means I have to be Stoic the Vast, which means I need a beard. So
You know, it's changing the youthful look of you that I'm used to seeing.
This is less than a week.
It's very. I shaved mine down last night. I can't find a good guard because this is too.
Yeah, that's weird.
Too short for me. For me, it's like the chin. The second chin is upon us with the current thing. I need a couple days here, but fortunately, this recording is not audio, or is all audio only. But you, my friend, gave me a trick and a treat yesterday when you said, or a couple of days ago when you said, "Hey, we should talk about this trailer here." So
we should, because we have been arguing that we need a movie like this.
Yes,
for years. In fact, we actually made an episode, whenever that was, probably wasn't that long ago, where we actually called an emergency meeting to discuss the need for what type of movie is that.
And then look at our power, Craig. A movie miraculously appeared, right?
Yes.
So if you're listening in right now, what we're talking about is the brand new trailer for this new film called Young Washington. It's being put out by the Angel and Wonder Project. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Slated for release on July 3rd, 2026, just in time for the nation's 250th birthday. We watched it just a few moments ago as well. We've seen it a couple of times now. What are your thoughts on this trailer? Like, what's going on here?
I actually really liked the trailer.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. I think it's capturing a lot of the essence of Washington and the French-Indian War. They are showing multiple perspectives. There's the British side, there's the colonial side, there's the French side, there's the native side. So I think it actually has a lot of nuance to it. Because again, when you're talking about the sort of frontier between the French colonies, the American colonies, is sort of this, to coin it, to borrow a term, the middle ground, this sort of really controlled, unconquered. It's no one really has control. Everyone sort of claims it. I think you need that. And if it had just gone, it's just the French perspective or just the colonial or just the native, I think you completely lose it, because it's about how all these different groups interact with each other. So I think it looks great. They have some legitimate people in it. Some of the casting we could talk about that maybe is it right? I would argue that for Washington, are you ever going to get it right? So I think that's a tough role for William Franklin Miller. I mean, why didn't you get a William Washington Miller? I mean, it's right there. But I think overall it looks really good.
Yeah, I don't like you and I look at this. The production values on this look absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
Um, here's what I dig. There are two things that I actually I dig here. One, I love teaching 7 Years' War, French and Indian War
Mhm.
here in the United States. I think it's fascinating. Um, it is a fascinating story to tell. I mean, I always call it the First World War One, although people will tell you there were other world wars well before this one. But it's my little turn of phrase that I used to like
Yeah.
when I was teaching.
Yeah, but not on as many continents, as far reaching, as many countries. Yeah,
Sure.
I still would argue it is the first. I mean, you could argue. I mean, there are others you could make a case for, but where else do you have wars simultaneously being fought on what, four continents?
Yeah, it's for me it's such a fascinating um a fascinating a book, right? Excuse me, fascinating conflict. And
Mhm.
the thing that I dig about this is really, as a historian, we often talk about when does the American Revolution
Mhm.
begin, right? And what's the difference between, say, the American Revolution versus, say, the Revolutionary War? I
Yes.
tend to really separate those two things. The Revolutionary is really
Mhm.
this intellectual concept of governance
Sure.
and power and state agency and things like that. Um, but you could definitely go this long revolutionary era, really kind of
Mhm.
beginning in 1754 with the 7 Years' War, going really through the French and Haitian revolutions um, as well. So I think that there's so much here to mine from. And then the
Oh yeah,
second thing, yeah,
I agree. I agree with you separating the two, and you could say the American Revolution may start in the French Indian War, though the war certainly does not. I think that's completely fair
right,
distinction.
right. And then the other thing I like, right, is going back and revisiting this idea of a young Washington, because I
Yes.
think when in our popular imagination we are so used to seeing on dollar bills and
Hmm.
paintings and things like that of these stately older men, older white
Yes.
guys, right? Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, whomever, right? And they're all in the wigs and the powdered wigs and they're all older guys and so forth. And there's almost this sense that these guys had an idea what they were doing, when the reality is the founding generation was actually quite young. Now Franklin's an outlier here,
Yes.
but these guys are young. A lot of these guys are younger than you and I at the outset of the American Revolution.
Which is
They're kind of,
disturbing now when I
oh
think about
yeah,
all I have not accomplished.
yeah. Well, we can go into Craig's therapy later on, but that'll be a pay per view listen on my Patreon. But it's so I like the idea of showing. It's like, wait a second, these are young
Yes.
people and they make mistakes like we're going to talk about at Fort Necessity, and like Washington is not does not always have all the answers,
Oh,
you
and the thing
know.
is with young Washington, pre French and Indian War, and especially early French and Indian War, is a completely different person from American Revolution Washington. He complete again, a complete flip is too strong, but he grows up and he grows
Yeah,
out of certain tendencies. And just think about, us, things we would have done or said or thought when we were 20, 21, 22 versus what, we how we would think about it today. And granted, you're a lot older than me, but
wow. Wow. Now I'm thinking about the things I haven't done, but no, absolutely. Right. So from everything we can tell, this film really kind of looks like it's taking place, from what we can tell, really between the years of, say, 1754 and 1755,
so I
somewhere
think
in that
a little
range.
earlier because it's got his mission out to the French commander, his trekking through the wilderness. So maybe
Right.
it's 1753, but to 1755 after. Can't really tell before or after, but it's in that sort of 2 year window, which I
Yeah.
think is a really smart move because we've talked about this on, if you want to go back and listen to our emergency podcast, Where's Our George Washington Movie? We
Hmm.
talked about this, that if you tried to do a full span of life movie, it would fall flat.
Right.
You have to pick a very specific moment. I mean, I could argue maybe 2 years is even, maybe it's a bit long, but I think 2 years is a good amount. I mean, I could almost picture like a movie that is just a moment, but I think the 2 years is good.
I think that there's a natural arc here that they can
Yes.
build to, right?
Yes.
Which is young Washington, the young Virginian, the
Mm-hmm.
young British officer, right, kind of coming through the ranks. From what we can tell here that we see on screen, there's almost certainly Fort Necessity, his mistakes
Yes.
that he makes at Fort Necessity, which I think probably provides that like that downhill moment in the film was like, this is the challenge. This is where he screws up. This is his nadir. And then we see him at later on, pretty sure at the Battle of Monongahela when he kind of rallies the forces after Braddock gets killed.
But
So
there's also the question of, we could say, is Fort Necessity the low point, or is the low point earlier the skirmish in Jumonville Glen, named after the death of Jumonville, who is
sure.
basically a French emissary. So there's a lot going on here, but I do agree with you. It's a natural story arc that goes from Washington's mission to the French, the death of Jumonville, Fort Necessity, to Washington's revenge at with Edward Braddock outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So it's a natural story, and I think if you break it there, again, I don't know how it's going to end, but I mean, if they break it with what Braddock's handing over his general sash, with his final breath, I think that's a great way to end it. I would sort of
and
just
now
cut it.
Washington's arrived on the stage.
Yeah, I would just cut it there first.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably where you're going, where he can successfully leads this retreat from the Glen. Can we talk a little bit about some people we see on screen? Because I think people listening to this podcast know who George Washington was. Now, there's also three other people that we really kind of see prominently pictured that people may know. First is Ben Kingsley. So I'm watching this trailer for the first time going, whoa, this is the legitimacy you need in this film. Playing Virginia Lieutenant Governor Robert Dinwiddie. Can you talk a little bit about Dinwiddie?
So Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie, excuse me.
Yeah. So Dinwiddie is actually a Scot. So
right.
Again, it's not perfect casting. All of
Kingsley's Indian.
All of Scotland will point out that he's a Scot. But no, you absolutely have to have Dinwiddie in there, who is lieutenant governor, but he's basically functioning as governor. The governor's sort of like an absentee governor, so he's basically, and he's crucial in Washington's life because he's the one that's sort of giving him all these positions, whether it's the sort of this emissary to the French or as the adjutant general of Virginia militia. He's the one that's really crafting Washington's career. So anything that Washington gets during this period is really due to the goodwill and patronage of Dinwiddie. So he is a absolutely crucial character. You couldn't not have him. I think Ben Kingsley is a great choice. Again, aside from that he's not a Scot, but and it's also, I don't think you need to have it completely, you don't have to have a Scottish accent. Yeah. No. I think it's a great choice. He's got the gravitas. It works.
Yeah, I think Kingsley goes, this is a serious movie.
Yes.
Is what they're looking at. Now you look at it and go, wait, is this a serious movie or is Ben Kingsley just getting paid?
Yes.
But that's the cynic in me.
Is he just Nicolas Caging this?
Yeah. But then I see somebody else here. Now I see Andy Serkis. Yes. And I'm like, wait a second. This is two actors that I know. Andy Serkis is playing the late, they're all late, actually, now we're 250 years later. Edward Braddock. Can we talk a little bit about who Braddock was and why he's going to be so important to this film?
After we do nasty, stinking colonials.
I mean, listen, Serkis is in this. Serkis is in a lot of ways the new Sean Bean. He's not making it through this film alive. But why is Braddock such a big deal to the 7 Years' War?
Again, Braddock was a British general. He was sent over basically after Washington fails. And there's a prevailing British mindset that American colonials cannot handle this. So General Braddock is sent over. He was previously the governor of Gibraltar. So he's sent over, and it's the first standing army in America since Bacon's Rebellion. So it's been a while. And he is going to lead the mission to dislodge the French from the West. So the British claim the area around Pittsburgh. Well, Virginians sort of claim to the Pacific Ocean. The French obviously claim it. The natives claim it, or variety of native nations claim it. So he's sent to lead this mission to dislodge the French. He, in many ways, gets a bad. As always with history, it's complicated. So traditionally, he gets a bad rap in that he's haughty, he's arrogant, he's this British officer that's sort of like, colonials can't fight. There is some. So I don't think that's accurate. He's, his career, he's actually been shown to be a fairly competent officer. I think he just doesn't understand the differences of fighting in North America versus fighting in traditional European theater. So he understands fighting the French on the continent of Europe. He doesn't understand fighting the French and natives in, the wilderness of America. But the thing that the largest sort of detractions against him is he has dinner with Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia, like you do if you're in Philadelphia. And Franklin records this, and Franklin sort of warning him about ambushes and the differences of fighting natives. And Braddock says something akin to, I'm paraphrasing here, "Oh, my dear Franklin, perhaps these natives would be fearsome for your colonial troops, but surely they will break against the scarlet red of His Majesty's forces." And
we're gonna see that in the film. Like we may not see Franklin himself, but look, we're gonna see Braddock self-assuredness, and we see that I think in the trailer as well. And when I was looking at the YouTube comments, people are like, "Oh my gosh, Ben Kingsley, Andy Serkis, Frasier." It's like he has a name, right?
Yes,
a man has a name, and it's Kelsey Grammer.
Yes.
So, who is Lord Fairfax?
So what you're seeing in this, you're basically seeing three prominent, or you could say four, but three prominent Anglo figures, and it's obviously Braddock, who does have a tremendous impact in Washington, not the same as the others because it's limited, but he had the potential to have a major impact when Washington serves on his staff. Lord Fairfax is one of the few legitimate titled aristocrats in the colonies during this period. So most of the time, most of the people in the colonies are, if you're elite, you're actually probably more middling by the English concept, which gives into why the British are often looking down on them. So you have these elite American colonists that they're at best the lowest. They're the poorest rich guys in England. Whereas the Fairfaxes are an actual titled family. So here's for instance, just to show you the difference. The Washingtons, at pre-French Indian War, right before Washington's father dies, owns 10,000 acres.
Mm-hmm.
The Fairfaxes own 5.2 million.
It's a bit more.
Just to show you.
It's a smidge.
Yeah. So Lord Fairfax is based, his house is Belvoir. So if you know Fort Belvoir in Virginia today, so it's not far from Mount Vernon. Washington's older brother marries into the family. And so he becomes one of these sort of mentor figures, giving sort of patronage, sort of guiding the way. So Washington gets, his first job as a surveyor, which he has no reason to get as a 17-year-old. Why? Because Lord Fairfax says, "Hey, go survey my land. I like you." And then he gets his job through Dinwiddie because the Fairfaxes basically vouch for him. Yeah. So he is a crucial figure. And the Fairfaxes are crucial for helping to correct, launder, massage Washington's reputation after Fort Necessity.
Okay. When I looked at the IMDb page, I could see who was listed as cast and so forth. What we don't see are any of the native people listed by casting, at least currently on IMDb. Although we do hear some presumably native folks speaking, and I'm wondering, Craig, if you're thinking that's also Tana Grisson, or if you think that might be somebody else.
That's the only person I could think it would be, also known as Half King.
Mm-hmm.
which is the British nickname. Um, I think he is. That's. I would imagine that's who that's supposed to be. I don't know who else it would be because he is certainly the central native character. Again, there are many others.
Right.
There are many others, but if we're boiling it down to
To
who do you
Fort
have to have,
Necessity. Yeah. I mean,
it
because we
has
know
to be
this is going to be a big set piece, right?
it has to be Hefkin, right?
Yeah. For you guys listening in, Half King was a Mingo leader. He was not a full on chief or leader per se. I mean, he was kind of like a sub chief. This
Yes,
is we're speaking really kind of broadly right now.
yes.
But this guy was clearly respected, clearly uh, respected definitely as far as his martial skills, and we're going to see more of him. It'll be interesting to see the depictions
And
of
he
him on
very
screen.
much played both sides. He played
Yeah.
the French, he played the British, he played other native nations, he played the colonists. So there's a very real dynamic here of who is he working for, if anyone? Is he out for
He's working for
himself?
himself. He's
Yeah.
working for his own people, just like everybody else
I mean,
was.
and you could even argue, is he maybe not even his people? There's actually he's and we could argue, is it paranoia? Is it legitimate fear? He's actually afraid that the French are going to like murder him.
Yeah,
So
right.
it becomes really personal.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if he's giving as much screen time as, say, some of the other people that we've seen
I
thus
would I
far.
would argue he should
Yeah,
have as I think he's if this is the story you're telling, he's at least as prominent for the first half.
yeah. Well, I think again, what we're talking about when we look at these areas. I mean, all of the stuff, the French and Indian War, as it's commonly called here in the United States, is fought on native land. You're gonna need to have native people in the story because they're part of this story. So as you and I are watching this kind of film unfold for us, this is the teaser trailer. It's supposed to
Yes.
give us a glimpse. It's not going to give us the whole thing. And I think they're purposely holding back from what I think is probably going to be the next big push on the full on trailer, because this is maybe, Craig, what for me as a scholar gives me a little, when I start to look at the production values, the groups producing this film, so forth, like, oh wow, we've got some big people here. We've got Kingsley and Circus and Grammer and so forth. Who's making this film? And it's a group called the Angel and Wonder Project. And the Wonder Project is created. They're based, I think, out of Nashville to produce faith and value based productions. So here's my concern on this, and I'm not the expert on Washington that you are, but what I think is coming is perhaps a bigger trailer that starts to emphasize Washington's faith. And I think
Yeah.
that as we head into this 250th anniversary of the United States, and I'm kind of wondering, Craig, what your thoughts on this, as far as like, if we can kind of talk just super briefly about where faith
Yeah.
played in Washington's life, maybe over time, and
Yeah.
I guess what we should be looking for as we move forward towards this film.
Okay, so this is again. I don't have any. Again, I think this trailer looks great. I
Right.
am. I am. I am going. I'm looking forward to this movie. That being said, given that the studio is faith based, again,
Fine.
perfectly fine. Um, as a historian, this is where I get a little. And we've talked about this before. Do movies have to be absolutely accurate? No, no, by no means. But as a Washington scholar, I could. This is the one place where I'm like, so Washington absolutely is Christian, but you could argue perhaps he's not a traditional sort of Anglican. Obviously, later divorcing from Episcopal, early Episcopalian. But he is absolutely, he believes in God, which is a deist, but he very much follows the ideas of divine providence. And he speaks in those terms. So you'll see, in later time, there's people very much trying to make Washington out to be, sort of this Christian soldier. You're probably familiar with the famous painting of him kneeling in the woods praying at Valley Forge. I don't think it would not be accurate to have scenes like that. Is it perfectly appropriate for him to mention God and providence? Perfectly fine. He would have done that. Anyone in the 18th century would have done
I
that.
think any soldier would have said that.
Yes.
Would have mentioned God at some point in time.
So the idea of, and you see that in the trailer, Ben Kingsley's like, oh, you have 4 bullet holes through your coat. How are you alive? Which did happen. This is from a famous letter that Washington writes. And he's going to claim divine providence. There's also a legend that the natives are going to say, well, he is the favorite of the gods. He's sort of protected. Was that said? I don't know. It sounds good. So I imagine, I say, yes, it is true. But that's one of the areas where I think it could go maybe in a direction that is less accurate. But again, I don't know. I have seen nothing in the trailer to indicate that.
Right. Look, like you and I are trying to be critical of what we've seen. We're trying to be good scholars here, which says like we can only judge what we have seen thus far. Right. I think it's okay for us to go, okay, putting some pieces together here, because I think that I've got some very real concerns based off what you said, that what this film might do is present George Washington as some kind of messianic figure that establishes the United States as a Christian nation once and for all.
So again,
that's what concerns me.
Again, I'm not going to comment because I don't know what's happening in this movie, right? I don't know. I'm just saying that every movie often makes the hero the messianic figure. So if that happens, that's just called movie making 101.
It's called Rocky IV.
So I don't think that's really an issue. Again, I'm not going to comment because I honestly don't know. What I do want to talk about is the casting.
Go ahead.
Of George Washington, young Washington.
Yes.
And I have no idea who this actor is. I have not seen him in anything. But much like how Washington gets named commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, it boils down basically to one thing. How tall is he? And I looked it up. He's 6'4". So he is tall enough to play Washington, who was somewhere between 6'2" and 6'4", depends how you measure, toes out, toes in. But what we don't know, Jason, are his thighs big enough to properly portray Washington? I don't know. We've got to get out the tape measure.
I'll let you go find an actor and ask him if you can, measure his thighs. I'm sure that won't be weird at all. Listen, I think it actually works best that we have an unknown.
Yes, I think that's
as great. Washington, because as you and I have talked about, certain characters, historical characters, they're almost too large. I think one of the amazing things that Daniel Day-Lewis was able to do was humanize Abraham Lincoln, but that's also because you have maybe the best actor of his generation portraying the man.
I think he's overrated, but that's a whole other thing.
How dare you, sir? I think there are certain guys like Washington, like Theodore Roosevelt, who are just too hard to portray on screen.
To be fair, Robin Williams did a really good job.
Yes, in Night in the Museum, because why not? But I'm looking forward to so as a scholar, as a historian of early America, here's what I'm looking forward to. Good, bad, or ugly, I'm looking forward to another opportunity to see how the memory of the Revolution, the memory of early America is being portrayed on screen, what that tells us about our current era, what that tells us about where we think we want to go as a society, what that tells us about biases and viewpoints and things like that. One of my favorite professors I ever had, his name is George Diener, teaches at Wichita State, always said this in class. He's like, look, as historians, we're not trying to have the final word. All we're trying to do is add to the argument. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this adds to the argument about a nation's founding, about how we think about America, and what that informs us as far as who we are as Americans. What's
often, I think, is going to be really interesting is that this Washington, this young, arrogant,
redheaded,
status-driven,
yes,
rank-obsessed, out for glory, mistake-making, complaining. He writes a lot of angry letters. He's like my mom, sending various letters to various companies about disappointment. This Washington's could be very different than
Washington,
than what the average American is used to. So I am actually really curious about the reception. And most Americans, let's be fair, don't know a whole lot about the French Indian War. So I think there's going to be a lot of learning here for people who see it. And I think there could be some really, what I could see is people saying, how could they portray Washington that way?
Well, I'm hoping
know,
that they're saying that because that means that they're portraying Washington in a format that we've never seen him before, which is the
yes,
David Morse stoic,
yes.
silent, has a plan, not this arrogant, tempestuous 22-year-old snot-nosed brat, kid who is out to make a
Because
name for himself.
you're talking about here a guy who rises to the rank of colonel of the Virginia militia despite having no military background. Why does he get this job? Well, his brother had the job.
Yeah.
That's it. This is everything is nepo baby stuff, and patronage. It's all there, and this is a Washington that literally. So if you read the book I recommend on this, I can recommend more, but the one I would recommend is by David Preston called Braddock's Defeat.
Ooh.
I think it's one of the best books
I know
written, one of the best past 25 years on in the era. And he basically has proven, and I think pretty definitively, Washington fires the first shot of what becomes the French Indian War. The question is it a shot like a signal, to send his men? Is it a warning shot, or is it literally a shot with intent? That, I think, is what's open-ended, because he actually found this fantastic source. It's a native source describing the skirmish in Jumonville Glen, and basically says Washington's the one that fires. But this is a Washington that is he doesn't kill a French emissary, but he's present. He's in command when
he's in there going, oh.
So when Half King literally splits the guy's head open with a hatchet.
And then you want to talk about what he does?
Go ahead.
After Half King splits Jumonville's head open with a hatchet, sticks his hands inside the man's head, grabs the man's brains, and smashes him up.
Again, we have all varying versions of this, and supposedly he says, I am not dead yet, my father, and then all these other
we're gonna have a lot of Half King man crushes, I think, coming out of this.
But it also really turns Washington off his native allies there, because he knows what's happened here, but he's trying to distance himself from it. The Battle of Fort Necessity is huge, because obviously it's a loss, but it's a freaking wooden palisade fort in the middle of a glen. Why do you build that? But the big thing there is Washington signs a treaty of capitulation, treaty of surrender, which is written in French. He doesn't speak French. His translator is Dutch. His French is better than his English. And so he basically signs a document that says he's responsible for the assassination of Jumonville.
Because the translator was trying to get them out alive.
Yeah, he basically was. He was like, oh no, it's just the death of. Oh, good enough. It really affects his reputation. The French are calling him an assassin. The British are like, how could you sign this? It's a huge deal. And then how does he get the Braddock job? Well, we need someone who's been out there. Who was the officer that led it? Well, that was Washington. Well, how did he get that job? Well, his brother had the job. Good enough. It's on my staff.
Yeah, and we'll get into this later on when we watch the film, because we'll come back and do a pod on this film here in about 9-10 months, whenever that is, and talk Washington's phenomenal horseman. We'll talk about this later on. There's a book, Craig, I really dig, Fred Anderson's Crucible of War, which is an overview of the 7 Years' War. So if you're looking for a larger story, it's a big, meaty book. But if you're looking for a general story of the 7 Years' War, I love this one. This is the one that really kind of gets into the different phases and really kind of campaigns of the war, different regions and so forth. I really dig that one as well. So
again, what I'm interested in, obviously the movie's called Young Washington, and we have 2 books that are out there called Young Washington. So there's a 2-volume biography that was done by Douglas Southall Freeman in the 40s called Young Washington. So is it based on that one? There's also a more recent one, I think 2017-ish, by Peter Stark, also called Young Washington. I am curious if these are directly based on one or both, or if it's just a compilation of varying accounts. There's some other great books, especially for you as a native historian. Is Colin Calloway's The Indian World of George Washington, which won the George Washington Book Prize. Beat me. I wasn't even a finalist, but it beat me. So that's another book. And then we were talking about religion and Washington. Mary Thompson wrote certainly the best book on that. And I think he froze. So Jason's not here. This is my chance to discuss the real elephant in the room, which is the fact that his arms are digitally edited. Yes, you've heard it here first. He digitally edits his arms. Am I joking? Who's to say?
There we are.
I recorded a little Easter egg in there for you, so you could keep it or you could edit it out.
I can't wait to see that. All right, well, maybe that's the gods telling us it's time to wrap this thing up, Craig. We asked, the fates have delivered. We are getting our young George Washington film. Will it hold water? It's the only one way to find out.
What I hope is that this is a trilogy.
Oh,
because we were just that. I think you could do this. You could do this. Add maybe a crossing of the Delaware, and then add a presidency one. I think that would be a really great trilogy. Oh. But we do have to talk about. There is another young Washington movie in the works. We discovered it yesterday.
Yes,
The Chronicles of Young Washington. So in this version, Young Washington, he fights the French. In the Chronicles of Young Washington, he's slated to fight the Beast of Odina. What is the Beast of Odina or Odina? I have no idea, but it looks like some supernatural monster. So is Washington set to get his Abe Lincoln vampire hunter moment? I don't know.
We can only hope. We can only find out as well. We'll do that. We'll do that one as a pod, I'm sure, because if there's anything here in the pod we love, it's George Washington. So stay tuned, everybody. Craig, thank you so much. I know you've got. Are you going to George Washington tonight? No, you're not.
No, I'm going to Stoic the Vest.
There you go, Stoic the Vest. All right, Craig, thank you so much for jumping in.
All right, see ya.